so we can get started. So today I think we are done with the latest. So we'll use the today and the next, this lab and the next one, lab 5 and 6. We'll be using the LED torch, or you can use any other torch that you want. This is mostly the imaging experiments that we will be doing. Okay, so first of all, I did receive a few emails saying, requesting for the extension of deadline for lab number 4. Just one second. Harsha. Okay, fine. Okay, so lab number 4, the deadline has not been extended. It remains whatever it was. So we had announced well in time, everybody. I mean, there are 86 students, and pretty much everybody kind of did it. So I get some 4 or 5 emails requesting for the extension of the deadline, and then at that point it becomes kind of unfair to everyone else if we actually do that. So so people who have submitted it, we will still take it depending on how late they have been submitted, but there will be a penalty for the late submission. Okay. Also, we had uploaded a lab plan in the very beginning, which had the structure of the different experiments that we will be doing. But again, for every lab, we upload the aim of the lab. So you need to follow that aim that we upload in each lab. The lab plan, that document at the very beginning, that is more of a general overview of what we kind of intended to do. But this year, since we are working with limited resources, sometimes it's very difficult to kind of do things that we had kind of planned to do, and then we kind of make modifications. So lab plan is just for the overall, a big picture thing. But whatever is in the is uploaded as the aim or objective or questions for a particular lab or homework, that is what you need to kind of do and submit, and the grading will be based on those only. Any other question anybody has? Any comment? Okay, if not, let me get started. So I have put up a few slides. So first we'll do that and then do the experiment. Okay, so today it is about imaging, basic imaging using a lens. Everybody pretty much knows imaging. So tell me, what is imaging? What do you understand by imaging before I get started? What is imaging?
I think imaging is basically it is using some sort of technique. To make basically if we have some sort of basically any data that we turn it into an image using any technique. Like for example, using ultrasound imaging, or like what we do with X-rays, and making an image out of some data. That could be imaging, and not just data, maybe like just reading some sort of reading and turning it into an image could be imaging, I guess.
Okay, so
taking spatial measurements of a large amount of data at one go.
No, I think let me clarify this. Anand's question is he's neither talking about techniques of imaging, nor is he talking about how do you process the image. Or what he's asking is, if you have something, an object, what would constitute an image of that object, right? There's some system that will transform it and bring what you will call as a decent image, or what would be your definition of an image of that object? Is that okay, Anand?
Yeah, exactly. So image is always of an object. So what do you mean by imaging an object exactly? So that is very simple question. It's, then we get into the techniques and stuff, but yes.
I
Something
think
after
imaging can
analysis
be.
which gives properties of the object, any property.
Sorry, Keval, can you go again?
Anything after analysis which you can get the properties of an object. Like you can get some property of an object from image.
What kind of property?
Any useful property.
Okay. Okay. I was looking for much simpler answers, but so it's like when you.
Can I go?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Is it like if you have an object, the photons, the light from it is kind of impingent, it creates an image. So basically, the structure or like properties of the object are transferred onto another medium.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So let me put it this way as well. What is one basic optic element that you require for imaging? I mean, I'm not talking about some very hi-fi imaging technique. What is the basic necessary ingredient that you need for imaging? How do you image something?
Require a lens.
Okay, fantastic. So and how does a lens perform imaging, or how does a lens kind of image an object? Okay, so that is the thing, that is the basic thing that I want to kind of we want to kind of cover today. And also do demonstration with some, again, whatever stuff we have in the kit. But imaging, I think nowadays everybody does imaging. Everybody has this phone camera. There's always a lens in the camera, and using that lens, although you don't realize, many people don't realize, but your face is the object, and then the camera, this is the lens. And what you see on the screen, is the image recorder. What you take in a selfie, that is an image of your own face, and that happens using this tiny lens. Of course, there's a lot of post-processing that goes, especially in these kind of cameras. But a basic thing is you have your face is the object, this is the lens, and then you make a image on. I mean, there is a sensor. There's a lens, there's a sensor, a multi-pixel sensor behind that camera, on which the image is formed, which is recorded, and then post-processed to do several other things. But that is the basic. Okay, so so last time we did this diffraction, and we had this very simple situation, which is diffraction means you have an object. It could be in the form of an aperture, amplitude aperture, or phase aperture, anything, and light falls onto it, either in the sense of a transmission. Either light falling and getting reflected from it, or light falling and getting transmitted through it. And then we ask the question, if this is the size of the aperture or the object, then a light falling onto it, again, of diffracting off of this object, what pattern gets formed at some distance, d away from that aperture. And then we kind of derived, of course, there's a complicated pattern that gets formed, but if you are in the far field, that means if you are far away from the aperture or the object, that means the distance is larger than the size of the object. Then what you find is that the amplitude at any plane is given by the Fourier transform of the object. Okay. And when you kind of take the intensity, then these phase factors kind of go away, and then we have a very simple Fourier transform kind of relation. And we had seen this for several objects. For a simple slit kind of object, we saw that rectangular object, we saw that we get a sin x by x kind of pattern, and so on. So what if, I mean, this is the diffraction, and what I want to kind of point out here is that this diffraction integral, this is actually the boss. This plays the boss in everything we do in optics. This is the starting point. Sometimes it is not very easy. Things are little involved, but everything can be derived from here. So the question that we are asking today is that suppose I have an object in the form of a face or an object, whatever, that I want to image. And I know for image, I have to use a lens, and this lens somehow will replicate this object over there. So this can also be formed as a diffraction problem. So I have an amplitude here. Through this diffraction integral, I propagate this amplitude, light amplitude from this point to that point, and then add the phase or the the amplitude corresponding to the lens, and then propagate it further at some other plane. So that is how it works. But that is a little involved kind of diffraction integral. So we will not be doing it that way, but I definitely wanted to point out whether you put a lens or anything, it is this diffraction integral that plays the, I mean, using this, you can pretty much explain, everything. Okay, so most people have done optics in terms of the ray optics by drawing some ray and then solving those problems, mostly the imaging problem. So I will be using that, but again, I will kind of point out again and again that whenever, the ray optical thing, again, after a certain point, it becomes difficult to handle it through ray optics. So one has to kind of go back to this diffraction integral. But for the, things that we are doing in this lab and next, I think we'll stick mostly to the ray picture. But we'll come back to this this integral, because here you get one very important information, that the diffraction integral, you have this object, and then what you get in the RP pattern, that is the Fourier transform. Okay, so now we will go back to the ray picture. So here, I mean, I've tried to explain simple words and simple picture. So how do you use a lens? So the first thing that a lens does, I mean, there are two things that a lens does. So let me ask, what are the things that a lens can do? Lens does imaging. Can a lens do anything else? Anybody knows? One thing that a lens does is, object, you put the lens somewhere from that object distance u, lens focal length is f, and then an image gets formed at location or a distance v, and you find that out from 1 over u plus 1 over v equal to 1 over f. But can a lens do anything else, or just form an image? Anybody? What was that, Harish?
Sir, dispersion can disperse if white light is non-monochromatic light is incident.
Dispersion, you mean separating the different colors?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, maybe it can also do that, but you pretty much use the prism for that purpose. Lens can also.
Right. I mean, it mostly comes up as a fault, probably when we use telescopes. Dispersion due to the dispersion due to the lens, we don't mostly use it for we don't intentionally want it. It generally comes up as a fault in optical devices, for example, in telescopes and microscopes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So again, I'm asking a very basic question. The one thing that a lens does is the imaging. What is the other thing that a lens does? And that I guess everybody is familiar. And once I point it out, I think everybody will be, So what else does it do?
Sir, I think lenses can be used for to refract and light rays, right? So we can use them to manipulate beams of light, right? So if we have, for example, a narrow beam, we can use a lens and we can turn it into something that is a bit.
Okay.
Increase the size of the.
Fine. Fine. Okay. So, what I kind of wanted to get at is that lens, that's the title of my slide. What was just pointed out is absolutely correct, but what was just pointed out, that is a combination of two things that a lens does. One is that it images, other that it does the Fourier transformation. But of course, these are two very special the thing that the lens does. But in general, of course, it will refract, and if you are at any random plane, then you will have just the the beams being reshaped in a rather random manner. So two things that we are mostly concerned with the lens is that one is that it does imaging, and the other one, it does the Fourier transformation. What do we mean by Fourier transformation? Again, we encountered Fourier transformation here, that if you have diffraction grading, go to far field, then just by propagation, what you find that the intensity structure or the amplitude structure you have in the far field is a Fourier transformation of the aperture in the at the z equal to 0. Now, here I have these three, like this is an object plane, and object plane, I'm just taking 3 point objects. Of course, by combining all these point objects, several point objects, you can actually make a very complicated image like a face or something, but this is just for the illustrating the, the basics. So every point source will definitely emit in all the direction. So, but here I'm just pointing out 3 directions. So this point source goes in this, that, this point source, this, that. So 3 direction. Of course, there will be infinite number of such directions. Okay. And I'm giving this color. The blue is the ray going in this direction from each point source. The red is the ray going in this direction from each point source, and so on. So the other thing that a lens does very efficiently is that it takes in a parallel set of rays. Again, I'm talking the ray language, but it can also be translated into the diffraction language. A parallel set of rays, it focuses it, right? A parallel set of ray, a lens will focus it. Can anybody tell me where does it focus a parallel set of ray?
At the focal point.
So if I actually put a lens, then any parallel set of ray, it will actually focus it at the focal plane. And the focal plane is a distance f1 in this case away from the lens, and this f1 is called the the focus of the lens. So this I have 3 set of parallel rays. So this blue gets focused here, red gets focused here, and green gets focused here. Of course, in a realistic object, you'll have infinite such points, and then you will have infinite such directions. Okay, and then each set of directions will actually get focused at some point. So you can see this is not imaging, right? Because we are not reproducing this point over here. But what is being reproduced actually is the momentum distribution or the direction. If we, when we go to the quantum mechanics, then we use a language of momentum and position. But while in classical wave optics, we use directions or wave vectors. So what we find is that these rays going in this direction are focused here, or combined here. These set of rays are get focused here, and so on for this one. So this is not imaging. This is actually taking a set of ray and then giving a point corresponding to that. So this is essentially what is called the Fourier transformation. Okay, so lens is basically in the quantum language, this is the these dots are kind of like position distribution of an object, and at this plane you have this momentum distribution, but you can't measure the momentum distribution. So you put a lens, and then you find that the momentum becomes the position at this plane, or different directions correspond to a point at the focal plane. These were the directions, but they correspond to a single point on this object. So if you go to the focal plane and take the measurement there of the points that you get, or the intensity pattern you get, that will correspond to the momentum distribution on this plane. Okay, so what a lens does is that the other thing that a lens does is the Fourier transformation. Okay, if you are at the focal plane, you can actually get the intensity corresponding to the Fourier transformation of this plane, which is also equal to the distribution of the directions, or in quantum language, the momentum distribution at this plane. So momentum distribution at this plane, you can measure by measuring the position distribution or the intensity distribution at this plane. Okay. So this is what a lens does. It takes a parallel set of rays, focuses it somewhere. Now, what if I do not stop here? What if I, try to observe at some other plane as well? So let's just move it a little further. And I'm just kind of extending all these rays. Now you find that there is a plane over here where this blue, red, and green, if you just notice, I mean, I just, here we're just parallel lines focused here, and then I just extended it. I didn't do anything else. That's why I'm doing it today is in PowerPoint, because I wanted to kind of draw these straight lines correctly. So you see these three set of rays that are coming from this point object, blue, red, and green. They are getting combined here. If you notice, these three set of rays that are scattering from this object, they are getting combined over there. And these three sets are getting combined over there. So of course, I'm using just 3 rays, but if you have infinite set of rays, but all these rays, all this direction, all these rays will actually combine to make a point here. And this is what is meant by imaging. Okay. In imaging, you have all kinds of, you have a point object, and any object you can break into several point objects. You have point objects, the rays goes in, you have scattering rays goes in all the directions. So if you make a measurement right at, let's say that you make a plane at this point, if you're very close to the object, then you will get a shadow of the object. But just if you are just a few millimeter, away from the object, you'll pretty much see nothing, or just a uniform intensity. But if you put a lens and then sit at some right plane, which is at distance v away from the lens, then you find that all the rays emanating from a given point on the object plane becomes a point at the image plane. So each point actually becomes again a point on this image plane, and this is what we call imaging. Okay, so this is the imaging using a single lens, in which we have the object at the distance u from the source. We find that an image gets formed at distance v, and I think you already know 1 over v plus 1 over u equal to 1 over f. So that kind of formula is how this is connected. And usually this is how imaging is done, usually and mostly in books. But I think there is another way of doing imaging, which is called 4F imaging. Okay. So if you notice, again, we have the same set of objects, parallel line. This is the focal plane where you will have the momentum distribution or the direction distribution. This is the image plane where you actually can form the image of the object. But suppose you put another lens. Okay, and this time what we are doing is so this is the lens with focal length f1. I'm putting another lens with focal length f2. And then making sure that the separation between the two lenses is f1 plus f2. Okay, and in fact, in this case, I should have done it. This would also be f1. Okay, so the fact that why we are calling it 4F imaging, because although you can have f1 and f2, but when the focal length of both these lenses are equal, then it's like f, and f, and so it's a 4F imaging. So 4F is used even when you have lenses with two separate focal lengths. So what happens in this case? Now, you notice that if you have a parallel set of rays, it gets focused at the focal plane, F1. Of course, if you reverse it, that any point source on the focal plane will become a parallel set of rays. So now for the second lens, this is like a point here. If I put a focal, if I put another lens such that this is the F2, then this will, after coming out, this will again become parallel rays, just like they were here. This will become like parallel rays, blue set, set of green and set of red. But if you just see that at this plane, these three rays are also combining back. So that is an image plane. Okay. So if you have an object here, and if you put two lenses such that this is F1, F2, or FF, then at this plane, you actually get the image of the object. So this is called 4F imaging. And in most modern equipment, this is the kind of imaging system that would actually be used. People mostly do not use single lens to kind of do the imaging. It is mostly in this configuration that imaging is used. Now here you see things are a little tight here. You don't have any freedom over there, over here pretty much. If you choose a lens of focal length f1 and f2, then you have to put an object here at f1, u equal to f1. Maybe I should correct it so that. Okay, so you have to put an object here and the image gets formed over here. But if you're using a single lens, then you have the freedom that, you know, you can put you can have any u, and corresponding to that u, there will be a v and so on. But in this kind of a system, it is quite fixed. You cannot move things around. I mean, this is the object plane and this is the image plane, and the separation between them is 4F or 2F1 plus 2F2. Okay, but this has several advantages. I will not. We cannot get into the too much of details into that. But I think I will just point out one advantage. So you see at this plane, focal plane, we have all these directions. This is also called spatial frequencies in the imaging language. All these directions and spatial frequencies are coming at one point. So if I suppose block this blue set of rays, okay, if I don't block the blue set of rays, I have all these 3 rays coming from the object and then 3 rays forming the image. But if I block the blue set of rays, then I mean, I don't have this ray, although this started from the object, but I don't have it after this point. So what would be the effect of that? If I block, one set of ray, one set of directions, what happens? Am I still getting the image or the image is gone? Can anybody tell me?
The brightness will reduce.
Only the brightness?
Yes.
Okay, but the image will remain exactly as it was?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, sir, the brightness would reduce, but the image should be complete.
Okay. Okay, so brightness will definitely reduce because I am blocking a little bit of intensity. But what also, there will be one more change. See, we have this object. Now, the directions in which light will be coming out from this object depends on the structure of the object, the shape of the object. For a very sharp object with sharp edges, you'll have the diffraction in all directions. But for a very smooth object, maybe you won't have diffraction in those directions. It just goes straight or something. So this direction carry information. It is not that they just carry the intensity. They also carry information. Okay. So a sharp object will have higher directions or higher spatial frequencies compared to smoother object. So if I block it, of course the intensity will reduce, but the image will still get formed. But if I'm removing the higher directions, higher frequencies, then I will, in my image, the sharper features will be missing. If I can, let's say, remove the red instead of this blue, then I will have, in fact, sharper feature, but the smoother feature will actually be missing. So you can actually make several, this is called spatial filtering. You can actually make several filters. Suppose if you have an object, but if you're interested only in the very sharp feature in the object and not in it, not the overall object, then what you can do is you can just block, you can put a filter or the block in the middle so that you are blocking all the low spatial frequencies and taking only the higher spatial frequencies. And those contain the information about the sharper feature of the object, and that is what you will see in the image. So in this 4F imaging, there are several advantages. One of the advantages is that you could do spatial filtering. You could decide what features you want on your image and what features you're not that much interested in. So I think I'm done as far as this is. Any question anybody has? This is with the very, very basics that we have covered. Okay, if not, then, oh, maybe I want to show one more thing. This was done by Harish Adsule. He actually has made a app. This is a web app. I thought it was very nice. So I'll share it with everybody. He is doing two-dimensional diffraction. So it's just a simple, writing a simple program. He's doing a simple diffraction. So this is a slit width of 32 micron. And, you know, if you increase the slit size, the diffraction, of course, gets reduced. If you reduce the slit size, it gets increased. So that's a very nice, if you increase it further. Yeah. So, oh, you have several objects. I see. He has double slit as well. Wow. Excellent. So this is very nice. So you have other objects as well. 2D grating. This is very nice. This is very nice. Harish, this is a great job. This is very nice. So yeah, I'll share this link somewhere, and then people can try and have fun.
Yeah. And sort of Harish has solved the problem of the of our laser, the front head of the laser.
Oh, that too. Yeah. So
yes. So that is.
He has.
You can show that to him.
He actually generated a. So this is the image that you get from that the aperture that is there.
Yeah, and you change. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he made this aperture, and he was able to get it very, very accurately. So this was a challenge problem thrown in the very beginning of the course, and yeah, I mean he gets it very, very closely. Yeah. So this is all diffraction. So just he's written this 2D diffraction integral, and that works. So this is fantastic, Harish. Very nice.
Yeah. Maybe Harish, can you just kind of open your, you know, we want to look at you and maybe explain to your friends how did you come up with that equation that I plus j plus k and then j plus k plus l, right? When with the cos theta and sin theta. How did you think of that?
Yeah, yes, sir. So, first of all, I'm sorry, I'm using a laptop which doesn't have, like, its webcam is not
okay.
working, so,
No problem. No.
So what I thought was so we could clearly see a grid with equispaced maximas.
Correct.
Which was sort of similar to what we get in a, say, a single slit. Even in a single slit, we get roughly equispaced maximas.
Correct.
But then when if we increase the number of slits, the sort of the maximas get exaggerated and the minimas get even less. So sort of that is why we use it for dispersion of 1D grating.
Correct.
So that led me to think that this is probably just a, at least at 0 degree rotation, it was like a 2D grating. And so when we rotated it, the pattern changed. And the thing which you can notice if we just rotate it a little bit is that each of those maximas get a grid of points around them, which are slightly tilted. So that sort of looked to me as if each of the beam, like if we imagine that a 2D grating just splits a beam into several smaller beams, it looked as if then each of the smaller beam is again being separated into several smaller beams at some angle.
Correct.
So I thought that maybe there could be two 2D gratings and we vary the angle between them. So I assumed this, and
it
then
came out.
Yeah, it matched the.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah,
So
that's
the initial, the first one, the crude approach is just uh, like from that we can just find out the position of maximas without performing any integration or any kind of.
correct, correct,
All right,
correct.
just rotating the thing. But even if we perform the
Mhm.
actual integral and all, and if we simulate, of course, analytically doing the integral might probably be a bit, yeah, but
Correct.
if,
So, but
because again,
even if you, let's say you have these two gratings, what you tried to do, so let me just tell you what Harish tried to do was, he tried to look at the light, he propagated, he attempted to propagate the light from the initial source to the first grating, and then take that first light and propagate to the second grating, and then he's looking at what is formed, right? That's what was your
right,
approach,
yes,
Harish? Yeah.
sir, yes,
Yeah, so
yes.
one could also do one thing, which is to assume you already got the structure for the two gratings. You can
Mm.
assume that both the structures are in the same plane.
Right.
Essentially, it's an overlap of two structures,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
do a
So,
single transformation across it.
yeah. So actually, for the simulation which you showed just now, that's exactly what I did.
What you have done. Okay.
Yeah, because actually, I mean, I thought I would do it afterwards.
Yeah,
But yeah, as you said, even if we consider them to be at exactly the same place, it doesn't make
plane.
much of a
Much
difference.
of a
So,
difference. It's
yeah,
just too close. Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah.
So you have you included that in your app? I don't remember
Yeah,
the.
it's there. It's there.
Is there? Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yes, sir.
Fine, fine. Fantastic. So people can play around with it
Yeah,
and figure it
thank
out.
you, sir.
Thanks, Harish. Good job done.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Anand, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. So hang on. So this way, let's see how far I'm successful with this. This imaging is a difficult thing. Hopefully you can see my. So this is my setup. Probably have to go quite far. So this is the torch, not laser. This I put in the rubber band so that you know it's kind of intact. Then let's remove this part. This is my object. Well, I'm planning to put two different objects, or with three different objects. That's my lens. This is a 10 centimeter lens, and then that's the screen. So I mean, sorry, if I give a broader, very difficult to hold it. So that's my source.
And for students, very important, the book on which Anand has put the torch.
Yeah.
This is it's a classic, the book for classical optics, Principle of Optics by Born and Wolf. This is the same Max Born, a very important physical interpretation to the wave function, and Wolf was his student. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
So and then again I have this object, lens, and the screen, and this is camera holder. So I once I've shown this set, I'll put my camera here, so it is very close to the where the image will be formed, and then I'll keep my camera there. And all I will do is change this object and maybe just move this lens here and there and kind of show how it actually works. So and then of course I also have this. This I made a tiny hole because when you have this camera, sorry, when you have the source,
Broadens a lot. Yeah.
it broadens a lot. So you have this lens, but then around the lens you have a lot of light, and that will cause the imaging a little difficult. So you put in, this is called an aperture, and in fact you want to make sure that I don't know how far this source, this object, this lens, this should be in a single line. If you don't have in a single line, there will be the aberrations. This is called aberration. That means your image will not be as nice. So if you want your image to be very nice, they need to be in one single line. Okay. In addition, I also have this measuring tape. I just wanted to kind of verify this 1 over u, 1 over v. So I just kind of kept it here so that I can measure the distances. Okay, so let me turn off this light. So first of all, what I'm putting is the same 2-slit object that I had made for the other experiment. So hopefully you can see it. But of course you can't resolve it. So it's the same 2 blade with the wire in between. But now let's say we'll try to image it and see, maybe that makes it easier for us to hopefully make the measurement. Okay, so let me turn this off as well. So if you see, maybe I don't know if you can actually see it. Well, I didn't mean to, but it's already. So now I'm bringing that aperture of that, my cardboard aperture, so that I'm blocking the light. So I can see it very clearly on my screen, but since what you're seeing in the camera is the image of that screen, and maybe things are not very clear, but you can see this very faint looking wire in between that, the 2 blades. Can anybody see it?
The wire is indeed visible.
Okay, it's not very clear, but yes, but now,
yeah, it is not very clear, but it is.
But now what I'm doing is I'm moving the lens. So this will change this UV condition, and then things will actually get blurred. So now you see this is all gone. I've just moved it a very, very tiny bit, and it is actually gone. And when this UV condition is kind of satisfied, you will have very sharp image, which is what it is kind of now. And again, when you have things in the center, it's much better. Okay, so this is this object. Now let me put another object. Let me first show what object I have. So this is the object. Hopefully you can see it. This is the last time, again, with the diffraction we did. I had made a few holes, with the needle, and we saw how the diffraction, through this. But today I want to kind of image this object as to what was the shape of that holes that I kind of made. Actually, another object also. This is a very bad. So I tried to make a smiley with a nail polish. Nail polish is a very thick, stuff. So you can. I didn't want to kind of show it because this looks so bad. But then, since the nail polish is thick, I kind of showed you. You can actually see that when you do imaging. You can actually see different depths, through that thickness. So hopefully we'll be able to see that. So now I'm removing this wire object and putting my aluminum foil with holes on them. So now let me bring it closer. So all I'm doing now is just changing the U. Yeah, so hopefully you can see that is the structure that you actually get. But
yes,
I am not sure if you are kind of happy, but so what we will do, okay, so now this is, well, I didn't do anything there. It is the camera trying to be smart and doing, auto focusing by itself. So for this distance, for example, let me just make a very quick measurement. My U is about 15 centimeters and the focal length is 10. And my V is about 30 centimeters, maybe 32 centimeters. Can somebody check if these are the correct distances? U equal to 15, or maybe U equal to, U equal to 15 roughly, V equal to 32, and focal length is 10. So can you use the same U, just use U and F to see if you get V close to 32 or 33. Okay, so Well, this did the imaging, but I don't think anybody is impressed with the quality of the image. So what we will do, because it still looks very tiny. So what we'll do is we'll go for a bigger magnification. So the way you increase the magnification is by increasing the U, this UV combination, because V by U becomes the magnification. So now what I'm doing now is let's bring it very close. So I was close to here, about 32 centimeters from the screen, but now I am about 88 centimeters or something, my lens. Okay, so this way we'll probably get much higher magnification. So let me. Has anybody calculated as to what if the V makes sense?
Yes, it was supposed to be around 30.
30. Okay, thank you. So that works. Now let me just do it for this. Again, you need to make sure that your source, the object, and the lens, they should be in a single line, and that's the only way you can get sharp images. So first, let me do it with the double slit object. Okay, so there is some color, which is, I think, because of dispersion that somebody was pointing out. These lenses are pretty bad quality. Now you see something on there. Let me just.
Yeah.
See, this is much. This is very sharp. Turn off the light.
Yes.
Now you can see it.
Excellent. Yeah.
So again, just a tiny bit here and there, and the image is gone. Of course, I see it much better on my screen, but because what you're seeing is the image of my image, and there the camera is acting a little smart, and that can cause problem. But you see it very clearly, and even a few millimeter movement of the. So you see, my wire was not in the center. I mean.
Yeah. And it is an angle.
It is an angle, exactly. So now you actually, by making measurements on the image plane as the size of the image, and looking at the and noting down the distances like U and V, you can actually find out size of the wire. Maybe that could be our. So this time, right now, my U is about 11, and my V is about 86. So 11 versus 86, about 8 times magnification. So what I see on the screen is 8 times as large as the object. So by looking at measuring it on the screen, I should be able to kind of estimate the size of the object. So maybe this we can put as the exercise.
Yeah. Yes.
This would be nice. Okay, so now let me put the other object. Let's see if that looks. And this is the aluminum foil with tiny holes. So again, the smartphone is acting smart, but now you see, you can actually see the shape of those holes that I was able to make. Now here, because here it is at the magnification of 8, I see it much better on my cardboard screen than you're seeing it through the camera. But you can see that the shapes of those holes are also very, very clear. Now let me bring in my 3D object, the thick object. So again, you should not be looking at the 2D features. This is supposed to be a 3D object, and I'm doing the depth imaging here. Let me push my camera a little back so that I can see the whole thing. So, well, if I am here, it's completely blurred. Now, if I go close to this U1 over V condition, that is close. Now, if you just watch, since it's a thick object, if I just move a tiny bit, we are now imaging different planes, through that thickness. So you can actually see. So actually, the resolution of this, not so expensive imaging setup is not bad. The depth resolution is actually pretty good at this magnification. And here I'm working with a magnification of 8 because that is the size of the desk I have. But one could do even larger. Okay. So here the depth resolution is pretty good. Right. We can also, so just the torch that we have given, that torch essentially has an LED. So now I have removed the aperture, the cardboard aperture I had, and no object. So I'm just want to measure the source itself, which is the torch.
Image the source. Yeah.
Image the source. So you see, this is the LED, the yellow type LED that you have in that torch, and you can actually very nicely image that LED. In fact, you can do this with your phone camera. Usually it has a circular LED with some structure on it. And if you do it, you can see those structures very easily because phone cameras also have as a light, this tiny LED over there. So this is not focused. And now this is the proper imaging condition. Of course, that is not a very thin object. Hence you see, the depth variation, but you are able to kind of image it very nicely. Okay, any question here? So maybe I can turn on the light and show you where this is. So this is just the torch and the lens and the screen. So, okay, anything? Maybe I'll stop here, and then if there is any question, we can take that up.
I think in terms of aberration, they can try out both the lenses they have. Right? There is a 10 centimeter one and there is a 20 centimeter one. That will allow them to see which one. My guess is that the 20 centimeter lens is a better lens because the curvature is less, that it might have lesser aberrations and more clearer set of images that you would get.
Yes, yes.
So they can probably check that out and make a comment on the quality of the images of the two lenses they have been given.
Yes, yes, yes. And again, on Tuesday, we will do, Tuesday will be our last, lab demonstration. So we'll try to do the 4F imaging. And I think there we will be looking for, I will not be doing that part maybe. We want you to do either 4F spatial filtering or some other uses of the 4F imaging. But that will be part of the last lab number 7. What we have done today, that will go as part of lab number 6. So some fun stuff will be part of lab number 7. You use 4F or 2 lens system in telescope, in microscope and stuff. So, if somebody can come up with some nice application on your own or from the literature, that is also okay. Some lab demonstration, that will be cool. Any question here on imaging?
So in the imaging part of the 3D kind of object where you took a glass slab and drew something on it. So like how will we be taking measurements? Like the depth effect, how will we be making actual measurements?
No, we will not ask you to do that. I mean,
Okay.
I was not able to do a very good smiley. Then I realized that at least I was able to do very thick, deposition. And then so it just shows that, if you have a very high magnification system, that becomes very sensitive to the value of U. And that is essentially, the basics as to how you do depth, imaging. So in principle, such system can also be used for depth imaging, but I think the depth imaging will not be part, because quantifying that depth will be very, very difficult at this stage. So just the very simple idea of how imaging works. Typically people keep taking their photos, but don't even know how imaging, actually works. So the aim of this lab is to, obtain some neat images and be able to do maybe some measurement of your double slit that everybody has made, or some other object that we'll think of. And then as Harsha is pointing out, you may also be asked to kind of characterize or see how the images are working with different lens with different focal lengths. So but depth imaging will not ask you to do. No. Any other question, comment? Okay, if none, we can stop here. Again, the deadlines are fixed, so try to kind of respect the deadline. Otherwise, it's very difficult. We have to be fair to everybody, and so it will be very difficult to kind of extend the deadline. If there is any medical emergency, then we can handle it on a one-by-one basis, but just extending the deadline, that will not be a possibility in normal circumstances. Okay, again, if no question, then we can stop here, and then we'll see you on Tuesday. Okay, bye-bye.